Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Gentreo podcast. As always, I'm your host, Jacob Murphy, joined today by COO and co-founder of Gentreo, Julie Fry. Welcome in, Julie.
Thanks, Jake.
I know you have quite the story as it relates to this company that you helped found. So why don't I just let you take it away? You can begin by telling us your story.
Sure. So, about 5 years ago, we got started doing estate planning with our parents, which actually led to us creating Gentreo because we realized it was so expensive, but everyone needed estate planning. So, we started Gentreo. And just like the Hair Club for Men, I actually became a member and did my own estate plan. And that meant that very quickly, I did my healthcare proxy, my will, my power of attorney, and then knocked out my digital vault. Was all excited and things were going great. And then about 2 years ago, was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And what ended up happening is this all was just as COVID was happening, and we were seeing many people over and over again update and change their estate plan based on what their situation is. And because I was going through that cancer diagnosis and nobody knew where it would end, I went back and I took a look at my own documents. Because, for example, my healthcare proxy, when I had filled that out, I was like, pull the plug, pull the plug. And when I went back and took a look, I was like, I am in my 40s or now I'm in my 50s. Put the plug back in if they can save me. And so it was great because by using Gentreo, I was able to go in and update my healthcare choices based on where I was now. And for me, it's been a crazy 2 years. So I started with chemo, lost all my hair, was super sick, worked full time throughout the whole thing. And then after chemo, got a massive blood clot, which in my lung, which almost killed me, but thank God did not. And then after that, did hormones that didn't work. And now I'm doing an experimental treatment, which thank God, it's been 2 years now and it's actually working. So happy to hear that. And it was very interesting for me because throughout the entire time that I've been working, that I've been fighting cancer and working full time, for me, it's always been about keeping that super positive attitude because there are so many people who have gone through this. I'm not the first, I'm not going to be the last. And it really gave me the opportunity to make sure that I understood what other people were going through and help make sure that we mirrored Gentreo and to reflect what I was going through and meet the needs of those people who were also going through the same thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say, a big part of what Gentreo does is helping people to create these documents um, for situations just like the one that you're going through. So how is having founded this company with that in mind, and then ending up having to go through it yourself, how has that changed your thinking as to how you can better the platform for the user who might also be going through something similar?
Yeah. And it really has changed quite a bit. And when you get that cancer diagnosis like I had, your life changes immediately. And for me, I was always excited and uh, really believed in estate planning. But when I went through that diagnosis myself, it actually changed the way that I looked at estate planning, that I looked at my legacy, and then I looked at our company. Because this is something that, and Gentrio is something that can really help those people who are going through these crises on their own, who are going through these hard decisions and realizing that they need to make sure that not only are they helping themselves and getting all their great health care and doing what the doctors say, but all of a sudden you realize you've got to protect your family. And so when I looked around and realized that, number one, I needed to update my own healthcare choices, but number two, I wanted to make sure that my family was prepared because God forbid something happened with me. I wanted to make sure that it was easy to update Gentrio and update your documents so that you can protect your family, because protecting your family and long term becomes hugely important.
Yeah, I want to expand a little bit on that. I know, you just talked a little bit about legacy, and Gentio itself talks a lot about securing your legacy. So, what does that mean to you, and to the users that you're looking to help learn about what a legacy can truly mean and how to protect their own?
Yeah. So a lot of people think estate planning is get my will, I'm done, that's it. Good estate planning starts while you're still living. It starts to making sure that you know what your healthcare choices are, that you want to make sure you protect your assets, your pets, your children, your family, etc. And you want to make sure that you protect your legacy. For me, legacy means not only who am I going to leave my money to, who am I going to leave my portion of my company to, who am I going to leave my assets to. It's also about how do I tell the story of me? How do I make sure that if I'm once I'm gone, my nephew, who I've raised almost as a third parent, understands who I was, can share that story with his kids and his grandkids, and my story gets to live on. So the legacy means everything from, yes, having those legal documents to make sure that everything is passed down, but more importantly, making sure that my story is told. And that actually happens a couple of different ways with Gentrio. Number one, it's a digital vault where I can upload my story. So I've been working on writing my story, both in my blog, which I have on gentrio.com. It's called Laughing in the Rain, but then also writing it just as in Word documents and uploading pictures into my digital vault so that if anything happens, my memories aren't going to be lost. We also have the videos and a memorials if that ever needed. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that it's a full service way to protect who you are. So it has those legal documents, but it also has that digital vault so that you can upload information and share those with our family and friends.
Yeah, I think when talking about legacy, your blog, Laughing in the Rain, is a great place to kind of understand where your mindset is with that. But there is one thing I want to jump back to real quick. When you were talking about estate planning starts while you're living, I think that's a really misunderstood concept, particularly to people who are not familiar with estate planning, maybe just getting into it. So, can you expand a little bit on kind of this concept of estate planning starting while you're living, and more importantly, what I think is important, people talk about, we've been talking about legacy. I feel like people also think that legacy starts when you stop, when
Mhm.
you pass away, that's when your legacy. But in my mind, your legacy is something that you're also writing and creating while you're still alive. So can you expand upon kind of how your estate plan and your legacy are not something that starts after you're gone, but is really something that you create and need to grow with as you're living.
You're spot on with that because your estate plan is something that starts now while you're still living. It's really important because a lot of people hear estate plan and they're like, I'm not a Kennedy. I don't have a compound down on Cape Cod. This is something that your estate plan is for everyone. It's for the rich, it's for the poor, it's for everybody to make sure that their choices, their assets, everything that they love is protected. And that estate plan starts now. If you're over the age of 18, you should have things in place like your power of attorney for finances. If the in the event that you can't make those financial decisions, who makes those on your behalf? That happens while you're still living. That power of attorney for finances only is in effect while you're still living. And with Gentrio, we actually offer both a limited and a durable, so you can choose either based on time or authority the financial power of attorney that is appropriate for you. But again, that only gets triggered either by time or by um, when you execute it. And why that's important is the financial power of attorney, like helping somebody pay their bills, their taxes, etc. That legal document only is in effect while that person is still living. And so, if anything did happen to me, like when I was in the hospital or when I was recovering, if I couldn't make financial decisions, I appointed my sister as my financial power, my attorney. She makes those decisions for me. And that happens while you're still alive. The will is a little bit different in that your will, you create your will while you're living, but a will does not go in effect until after you pass away. And that's really important because people think, hey, I'm totally covered. I got a free will online. I'm gonna get it done. I finished the document, one and done. I'm all set. That's not the case. The will only protects your choices after you pass away. And so you want to make sure that you have your financial power of attorney done. You want to make sure you have your will done. And then the third big document we suggest for people is the healthcare proxy or the power of attorney for healthcare. And that power of attorney for healthcare, again, that's another document that actually only takes effect while the person is still living. And but what that does, hugely important document that allows you to say what your healthcare choices are. And it allows you to set up if you have a HIPAA release so that if you name someone who can talk to your doctors, who can help you make doctor's appointments, pick up your medicines, talk to your pharmacist, etc., on your behalf, you have that legal document to do so. And again, the healthcare proxy only takes is only effective while that person is still living. And that one is very important because when I got that really scary healthcare cancer diagnosis, I went back to my healthcare proxy and changed some of my answers. Like, do I want life sustaining treatment? Do I want artificial nutrition? A lot of the questions that were hard and that were easy for me the first time, but when I started going through a serious medical situation, became a lot more relevant and a lot harder to answer that second time.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, it seems like common knowledge, but people still fail to realize that people just do. Everyone changes as you age, as you go through new experiences in life, and your decision is going to change too. And kind of relating to that, one thing that stood out to me is how you said estate planning is for everyone, for the rich, and a little more specifically for the poor. And I know that a big emphasis for you in creating this company has been to make estate planning not only easy and accessible, but particularly affordable. Can you talk a little bit about the traditional way that estate planning is done and how you've come into this industry and revitalized a way that people who may not be the most financially well off can still have access to this, not only for the first time but also you know throughout their changing and growing lives.
Yep, that is something that was a key mission for Gentreo when we got started because we wanted to give the ability for people to use technology to create an estate plan that works for them and with no lawyers needed. Because traditionally, you went to a lawyer, you paid for a super easy one, $500, $3,000, but $5,000 depending on your situation. You paid quite a bit of money and then had that document in place. And again, most of it was just the will that people walked away with that only took effect after the person passed away. What we wanted to do is we wanted people to realize that estate planning is comprehensive. It starts now and it is making sure that you have not only the legal documents like the will, but also all the other documents like pet trust and a living trust with a pour over will and healthcare proxies and your digital vault so that if anything did happen, your family or those people that you choose are aware of what your decisions are and they have those legal documents to make sure that they can uphold those decisions for you. A lot of times for the people who don't have money or who think, oh, I have a simple estate, I don't need a plan, everything's going to my husband or everything's going to go to my wife or I this is something that is going to I don't have enough to even worry about. That's not true because a lot of these same people have children and you want to make sure that your children are going to have the guardians that you choose. You want to make sure that if you do have any assets, especially homes, a lot of times people, grandparents have homes that get passed down. You want to make sure that you have that will in place so that if anything does happen, the courts don't decide what happens. You and your family decide what happens with your assets and your homes, your cars, etc. This is incredibly important because just because you don't have millions of dollars sitting in the bank or huge retirement funds or CDs, etc. If you have assets, you need to make sure that you're controlling who has what and who gets what. And so it's really incredibly important that everybody takes control of their estate plan. And with Gentreo, we make it affordable so that it's only 150 the first year or $50 the next year, so that it becomes accessible and available to everyone.
So I want to talk a little bit about the blog that you mentioned, "Laughing in the Rain." I get the title there. I love that title, but I want to kind of expand a little bit about the contents of the blog as it relates to that title, "Laughing in the Rain." So can you give me some examples of like the good things that have come out of this terrible situation with your cancer diagnosis?
Yeah, for me, the laughing in the rain, are you going to laugh or are you going to cry? And it's great because when you're in the rain, you can't tell if you're crying or not. For me, it's always about that attitude and creating and holding that great attitude. And with my blog, what I want to do is I want to share my personal stories because, again, I'm not the only person who's going through this. So many people go through this. And every Monday, I go to the cancer center, and I typically am the youngest person there. But I sit and I talk with the nurses and the other patients, and everybody has a story. And what I want to do is focus on the positive. For me, number one, it is amazing how many people help and offer support and came out of the woodwork. My friends, all of a sudden, my Facebook account was flooded with well wishers, people who I was friends with before really jumped in and would offer everything from rides to my test and sitting with me as I was drinking my CT fluids and making sure that there was somebody there with when I went in and got results, etc., to sending me books and helping me out and just making me laugh. Um, Developing those friendships and really deepening those friendships is something that absolutely came out of that cancer diagnosis. But then, in addition to that, I've had a lot of really great fun with some of the resources that have been opened up to me. So, for example, one of my favorite things and one of my favorite stories, we went to Italy. I wanted to go to Rome. I'd never been to Rome, but I have a really hard time walking. So, anything after, like a block down and I'm beat and I'm done. Uh, but so I have a handicap permit because anybody who's gone to Europe knows Europe is a lot of walking. So I got a handicap permit. But while I can't walk, I can drive. And I'm pretty fearless when it comes to driving. So when we went to Austria and we went to Italy and Switzerland and Liechtenstein just because it could count for one more country. And when we did, we drove through, and with a handicap permit, you're able to drive through pretty much anywhere through like around the walled cities, UNESCO World Heritage sites. And it gave me the opportunity to see things like the Leaning Tower of Pisa that I would never have been able to see before. And so, thanks to, had I not had cancer, I wouldn't have had that handicap permit, or frankly, I wouldn't have needed it, but I could use that handicap permit to drive through and see just amazing, amazing things. One time we were driving and we went through um, the, we were in Florence, which you can't drive pretty much in Florence unless you're a taxi or a police or have a handicap permit. And so I was relishing that, and I was really so excited about the fact that I could drive through Florence. So we go to Florence, and our hotel was really close to the Plaza Vecchio, which they have a statue of David. And then in addition, there's another statue of David inside the building. I accidentally took a wrong turn and ended up in the Plaza Vecchio, driving through the Plaza Vecchio. And so I'm like, Renee. And my sister would sit next to, she would sit in the passenger side, and I'd be like, get the parking, get the handicap permit, wave it now. And so she would wave it so that people knew that we weren't just crazy people, although we probably were. But it was great because we felt like the European vacation, the Griswolds, we're stuck in the Plaza Vecchio, face to face with the statue of David, and I'm like, I think I need to do a 3 point turn. Liam, who's my nephew, get out and move those tables so I can do a 3 point turn. And he's like, no, you got to back up. And so it was so much fun because while we were living the situation, we're like, who else could do this? When do you get these opportunities? And it's stuff like that that I really value so much because it's an experience I never would have had. I go to the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. They're phenomenal there. And they actually nominated me to be part of the Crucial Catch. So I actually got to go through the NFL's Crucial Catch program. So they honored me and 14 other women at the Patriots. And we had a day of pampering, and then we got to go down on the field. And then my nephew, who had just started playing football for the Boston College High School, he actually got to join me on the field before the game. We got to actually wave the pom poms as the players ran by us. And we got to really have an experience that he'll never forget that I was able to give him because of this horrible thing that I was going through. And that's really what I want to focus my blog on because it's not just about how do I live day to day with cancer. It's not about, oh, I have to go in and get fluids and I'm exhausted and how do I work? And no, what I want to focus on with my blog is yes, I have this. It's not fun. I have to deal with it. But how do I live my life? And how do I live my life to the fullest? And that's what I'm really focused on now.
And I think that same attitude that I've seen in your blog can be seen in parallel with how you've structured Gentrio and how your attitude is with helping people establish their estate plan. Because I mean, at its core, estate planning, it does talk about some grim subjects like what's going to happen when I pass away, and no one likes to think about that. But I think it's been incredible that you've been able to give people this tool so they can have a similar attitude of, this stuff isn't exactly the greatest to have to deal with, but we can, you know, we can be excited over the fact that it's done, it's protected, it's growing, and it's secure.
Yep. And I was talking to a friend who I was telling him my story, and he's like, it is so amazing to talk to you because I feel like I can tell you what I'm going through because you normalize it. And that's what we want to do with estate planning because not everybody is going to go through these situations. Not everybody's going to have cancer. Not everybody's going to go have to care for parents, XYZ. But everybody does have something that they love, that they want to protect. And you don't wake up in the morning thinking, oh, I want to talk about death. At least I don't. But what we want to do with Gentrio is make estate planning attainable for everyone. This is something that as much as we don't want to have to deal with it, unfortunately, we all know death and taxes are coming for us at some point. What we want to do is we want to make sure that people have the tools to protect themselves, to protect their families, their pets, their everything that they've worked so hard to accomplish and build, and their legacy. And we want to make it so that it's not intimidating because Gentrio isn't only about tell me about when you die. Tell me about who gets what. Tell me about do you want to pull the plug, etc. We want to make this about tell me about your life. Tell me about your legacy. Tell me about what you love and then how do you protect that?
So through all of this, through your blog and through building Gentrio and through your diagnosis, I wanted to ask, what have you learned that you can pass along to our listeners and to Gentrio members who might be going through some similar things, be it estate planning or a health crisis, what have you learned that you think would be the most beneficial for people to hear?
So it's actually kind of a two-parter. First, I think the biggest thing that I've learned is keep that attitude. But the second and most important is you need to take it one step at a time. Because I cannot tell you how many times that I am laying in my bed thinking, I don't want to get up, or I'm so sick, or shaking in pain. But I realize that take one more step, one thing at a time. And I know there's the saying, um, take one day at a time. And that's so true because for me, it's not only one day, but it's one step at a time. Because in the morning, I could be feeling great. By the afternoon, I need a nap. And it's okay to actually stop, take the time that you need. It's okay when you're doing things like directly related to the Gentreo, creating your estate plan. You don't need to do everything all at once. Take it one step at a time. If you get one document done today, that's great. If you need a week or two and then you want to create another document or upload some information, that's great. Take it at the pace that works for you because not everything needs to be done right now. Everything, what you need to do is you need to focus on how do you get to that next step and what is it going to take just to, number one, for me, get out of bed or even just make sure that, you know, I can be there for what is important to me, like my family, like my company, and like helping others.
Yeah, I love that, and I think that aligns perfectly with what we've been talking about this whole time, which is building your legacy. It doesn't happen in a day. It takes a day at a time to build your legacy, and you want to make sure you have it built so that as we always say, leave a legacy, not a mess when the time comes.
Mhm.
So where can people find your blog so they can read Laughing in the Rain firsthand as it updates?
Oh, sure. So if you go to gentreo.com, which is gentreo.com, there's a link to Laughing in the Rain there. It's under the resources, and it's something that I continue to share my stories. So, for instance, we just went and got to go visit France and went to Lourdes. And so I'm about to share and update the information there. And this is something that we all can share our stories. We all can make sure that we're protecting what we love. And for me, being able to share my experiences is so incredibly important. And hopefully it helps others as well.
I certainly hope that people get some good stuff out of it. So that's Laughing in the Rain that you can find on gentrio.com. Julie, thanks for coming in and sharing your story.
Great. Thanks, Jake.